Chapter 27. Fun was the last thing on our minds the next day, though. Not by the end of it, anyways. The day started fine enough, snow was starting to finally melt for good, and the ground was covered with the white-brown remnants of winter clinging to spring. The sloppy ground forced most of the student body inside, and with the line from my beloved Mexi fries was far too long to wait for, Sarah and Sean weren't also fond of the line, so we decided to head to the store for a quick and dirty lunch of chips and whatever questionable sandwiches might be in the cooler. I really enjoyed these days. Sarah and I spent most of our time together, not because it was really going anywhere, but because it was fun to be around each other. She laughed at my lame jokes, and I liked talking to someone who didn't fit nicely into either girlfriend or friend slot in my life. Don't get me wrong, I wished it was different, but I wasn't so stupid as to make it what wasn't happening stop out of principle. Sean walked ahead of us, bobbing his head in some shiny new red headphones that were purchased on the remnants from the Locker Casino Fund. He had this funky chicken dance that seemed to work with whatever was on the radio or playing in his head, his tall, lanky body twisting and bobbing to the beat. It's something to see, that's for sure. You think he knows how adorable he is with those big headphones on? Sarah asked. I chuckled. Yeah, he's our cute little 7-foot-tall tech guru. It's just endearing, that's all, Sarah said. I really hope he finds a girl at uni. Either that or successfully makes one in the lab, I joked. The things you can 3D print these days is really something. She laughed and bumped my shoulder playfully. Our hands touched for a brief second, and both of us thought about holding each other, or at least I did. We quickly glanced at each other and kept walking. It was times like these that made me wonder if she was right, and the possibility of us not seeing each other later was really worth it. Sorry, she said. It's fine, I said, and I couldn't have been lying more. We got to the shop and began searching for suitable sustenance. Sean picked out 3 microwave burritos, I swear that had been in the pop fridge for the entirety of our high school year. Questionable food choices seemed to be his elixir of life. I once saw him eat a cheeseburger he found. He wouldn't say where, and it didn't look new or fresh, yet he ate it and remained unfazed for the rest of the day. The man was a human garbage disposal. Sarah grabbed a pack of salt and vinegar chips and a Coke, and I picked up a pack of beef jerky and a matching Coke, and we spent entirely too long trying to find our names on the Coke bottles to no avail. You'd think Chris and Sarah would be common enough names, but the closest we got were Susan and Chuck. We walked back. The walk back was a bit of a hike, and the school was up a small hill, and walking down it, but a mountain when going back up. I finally had an appreciation for the parental stories of walking uphill both ways to school. They were just impatient for food, that's all they were. Sean again was walking ahead of us, still bobbing his head next to the next song, but a bit farther than before. I had my suspicions that he knew about us and our complicated relationship. He was a smart guy, after all, and it was nice that he was giving us space, but still being a friend and not leaving us alone. I was looking at Sarah after some joke I said. I can't remember it or much of what happened between the store and the look I saw on her face. I had seen her scared before, at least I thought so, when Cynthia and Tony When she saw Cynthia and Tony at the dance, her face showed what I thought was fear. This was worse, though. Much worse. Her eyes widened in a millisecond, and her skin lost all its color. Her hand reaching for anything in light of what was about to happen, fingers getting caught in the zippered edge of my hoodie. The sound broke my gaze first as the high-pitched squeal pierced the air, and I whipped my head towards the sound and both heard and saw the car hit Sean. The impact of the sound of body and metal still haunts me today, but the deadening crack was audible over everything else. The car must have drifted over the slushy edges of the road and lost control. Across the lane, hit Sean straight on, his knees buckled just above the hood, his body collapsing into the windshield and roof. The screeching of the tires continued as the car swerved from the impact until it hit the crash-proof steel and cable edging that lined the road. The car stopped, but Sean's body was thrown from the car's impact and careened into a telephone pole. On the road we had just passed. Sarah screamed, but I don't even remember hearing it. I remember running towards Sean, crashing into the ditch he had landed in and seeing his face, a mess of blood and glass, and no discernible beginning or end to the red. I couldn't see where his face ended or where his headphones began. It was what was glass or what was Sean. I tried to talk to him and covered him with my hoodie. He didn't groan or move or respond. My pants were soaked from the wet ground and mud. My shirt was a mess of red flecks from his body, and he was silent, or at least I couldn't hear anything. I checked his breath with my cheek like we were taught in health class during first aid and CPR. A slow, faint wind escaped his mouth, and he touched my face. He was breathing. He was still alive, at least for now, so I ripped my hoodie off and covered him with it, desperately trying to get him to respond, but he wouldn't. It took an RCMP constable pulling me away to check Sean's vitals before I snapped back into it. Sarah was still standing there where I left, a look of utter confusion and terror permanently etched on her face. I stumbled up the edge of the road towards her as the ambulance sirens rang out in the distance. We watched helplessly as a crowd began to form around the bank, and paramedics lifted Sean out of the ditch on a bright yellow stretcher, discarding the broken red plastic that were his new headphones. We watched in horror as they pulled the driver out of the car as well. It looked like a sheet was over his head on a yellow stretcher too. I held Sarah as she shivered, not because it was cold. The shock was setting in. In the distance to the school, the school bell rang. "Come on, we need to let the school know," was all I could manage to say, and we left before the constable was able to get our statements and ran to the school. Chapter 27, The Incident. That was tough to write and tough to read. Hope you guys like it and like where the story is going. The description has links for the books, and we'll talk to you guys soon.